Today I'm going to be roasting some coffee here at home, and I thought I would point out some of the features of my roaster while I'm roasting, so stick around. Alright, thank you for joining me today here at the Virtual Coffee Lab. I've got to roast some coffee for my family, and I thought I would share some of the features of this roaster that I'm using. It's a 500 gram coffee roaster made by Mill City. It is a 2017 model. It's been a great unit for me. This is a completely manual roaster. Some of their newer roasters have the option to have an automatic feature. This does have data logging software, but I'll get into the features of the roaster when we get this roast going. So let's get it started. This roaster is a gas roaster, runs on natural gas. It originally came set up for propane, and I converted it to gas by making some modifications to the gas jets so that I could run natural gas through the system. It's a pretty simple modification to do. This roaster takes about 30 minutes to warm up, so I'm going to get that started right now, and here is how I do it. The roaster has a control panel that is pretty straightforward. This is the power switch, and it goes through an initialization. These buttons down here, this is the roasting button that turns the gas on and off. This is the cooling fan button that actuates the fan that cool the beans over in the tray over here. And then this is the timer switch that allows me to monitor the time. So I can roast without logging software. I can chart all my times and temperatures right through the timer here and the PID right here. This PID is set up so that it can monitor my top range temperature, my emergency shutoff temperature, which is set for 445 degrees. That can be programmed to whatever temperature I want. It's really nice and convenient for the warm-up cycle because I can be setting up my coffee and doing other things here in the area while the roaster is warming up, and if it gets too warm, it'll turn off the gas, it'll cool down to a certain temperature, and then click back on. So it allows me to allow my system to cycle and go through and warm up completely. This is the airflow control. This allows me to control my airflow 100%, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. Alright, on the front of the machine is the dryer. I'm going to be controlling the airflow knob, turning it up and down so you can see the impact that air has on the roaster as I operate that switch. Alright, this is the dryer. This is where you inspect the coffee, and if you remove this, and I'm going to use this lighter right here, and you can see the draw on the flame is neutral right now. I've got this set up, here let me see, there we go. I've got this set up right now so that the fan is running, but there's no air being sucked into the system. When I turn the fan up, you can see the flame pull in to the dryer. Now this is what I would call a medium. Here, this is like a medium draw right now. So when I go from a low setting, which is minimal draw, to a high setting, which is high draw to get the smoke out of the system, that's what I'm talking about. So this is a medium draw, and this is a high draw, which is right on the edge of extinguishing this flame. If I turn it up, that's pretty high, and that's gonna more or less extinguish the flame. It's very close. Okay, I'm going to start up the roaster right now, get the burners going, and get it into the warm-up mode, the pre-warm, and it'll be in that state for about half hour, and then we'll begin the roast. This is my emergency shutoff valve. I turn this one on first. This is a regulator that caps off my maximum pressure coming into the house, regulates the gas. And then I have yellow dryer vent gas line that I use to connect to the gas valve, the needle valve that I actually control my gas volume with during the roasting process, and that's this right here. To read my gas pressure, I have the original gas gauge, and it's measured in kPa. This goes from 0 to 5, as you can see, but my total gas pressure here in my house only goes to about 1.8. And so I'm only using this small portion of the dial for my roast. It's been kind of difficult for me to be precise in my settings, so I installed this MagnaHelic. This is a great gauge that really measures 0 to 2 kPa, which is from here to here. That's what this gauge represents. And so I have a much more precise metering of my gas volume coming into the roaster, and I can be a little more exact so that my roasts can be a little more consistent. These gas burners, I've got 2 of them, along with this roaster, produce 10,000 BTU. So I'm going to set it here, leave it here for about a half hour, let the roaster warm up. Alright, I'm ready to roast my coffee. The roaster is completely warmed up. It's been a little over a half hour. I'm getting really close to my charge temperature of 380 degrees on Artisan's charge temperature. And I'll start the timer. You'll be able to see this roast go from beginning to end, and I'll talk to you about some of the features that I'm using as I roast along. Okay, I've got the gas off for the first 30 seconds, 45 seconds of the roast. I'll talk about my drum setting here in just a second. The timer is on. You can see on the camera for the beans that I've got a nice little angle going on as these beans soak. I just set my drum speed to 30, which is about 50 revolutions per minute. And I'm going to turn on my gas. Okay, so I've got a few things that I've just done. So I've altered the drum speed. Got a dial right here. Got a dial right here that controls the drum speed. I'm usually using 2 settings on my drum speed. This initial setting of about 50 RPM, and then just before dry end, I turn it to about 60 RPM. So I go from 30 on my dial to 35 on my dial here on my Mill City roaster. I've got my gas setting to 1 kPa, which is about 60% of my maximum gas capacity, and this is going to help me get to a target time of about 5 minutes. I just hit turning point at 1 minute and 42 on the PID, 1 minute and 30 on Artisan. 260 degrees, 1 minute and 30. I'm going to turn my gas up just a little bit because I know I'm going to be just a little behind. I forgot to mark when I turned my gas on initially because I'm doing the video here. This always happens. Whenever I do a roast on the video, I forget something, but I'm still good. And I'm going to watch Artisan, and I'm going to watch this dry phase time. Again, my target's about 5 minutes. My rate of rise is about 18 or 19. I usually get up to around 22, 23 on my rate of rise. So I should be about 5:10 or 5:15 according to Artisan for my dry end. My airflow is set to neutral right now. I want these beans to be able to soak the heat. I'm not interested in convection type heating right now. I want conduction heat. So I want bean to bean, bean to metal, and that roaster drum is moving to keep those beans from getting scorched. All right, 5 minutes and 23 seconds is now my dry phase or dry end number that it looks like I'm headed towards. Now 5:19. I'm at 21 and a half I'm sorry, 21 and a half on my rate of rise. And I'm at 5 minutes and 18 seconds. I'm going to turn my drum speed up in about a minute before dry end hits. So at about 4:13, I'm going to turn my drum speed up, and I'm also going to increase my airflow. And I'm going to start to transition to the browning phase. 5:13 is now my dry end time. The beans are starting to get bright. Some call this paling. Kind of is an oxymoron, but they seem to get a little brighter in color as they turn from a darker green to a pale. And there is some yellowing going on, and I am going to turn my gas down to about a half a kPa. Turn my air up to 40. .512 is my dry end. I still have some green in the beans. All right, dry end. All right, dry end was at 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Artisan was pretty close. And I'm going to start my descent down to first crack. First crack, I'm looking for a target time of around 8 minutes and 30 seconds for my target time. I'm making a slight gas adjustment to just lower the heat just a little bit more to help me get down. My rate of rise is 19, and I want to get it down to about 16 or 17, and ultimately down to about 12. So I'm doing a couple things at the same time. I am watching my first crack estimated time on Artisan. I'm watching my rate of rise, and I'm watching my the descent of rate of rise, so that I can time the 8 minute and 30 second event for first crack. And I've got a nice little slope going. I'm at 355 degrees at 15 and a half on my rate of rise. And things are going really well. All right, so I'm going to make another air adjustment after I reach first crack. My first crack time right now is estimated at 8:12, 8:19, sorry. So I'm going to be maybe just a shade early. Making a minor gas adjustment just to lower it a smidge to help me get my rate of rise down just a tad. All right, I'm feeling really comfortable now with where I'm at in this roast. I got a minute before first crack, and I'm at a 13, 14 rate of rise, which is good. I'd like to come in around 12. Starting to smell just a little bit of the sweetness going on. And I'm at 375. This potentially is my pre-first crack flick. And I'm going to Watch my rate of rise. I'm actually adding gas now to prevent the crash. All right, and I'm beginning to hear first crack, outliers, and I got first crack. All right, first crack was about 6 seconds early, and now I want to make sure I get enough development time, so I'm going to lower my rate of rise, increase my airflow. And this roaster is really sensitive to gas, so I'm going to be playing with the gas just in very small increments here. I got a nice rolling crack going. And I'm at 10 on my rate of rise. 9% development. (393 degrees). I want to drop this coffee at about 400 degrees. Got a little bit of a bump here. (395), 14%. I'm going to be about 18 to 20% development, I think. (16%). Starting to smell the coffee. I'm shutting my gas off. (400). Turn on my fan. All right, well, 402 on here was the drop. Went a little longer. My range for this coffee is usually $3.99 to $4.01, so I went a little bit further than that. I got 20% development. At least I think I got 20% development. Let's take a look. All right, so here's my roast, and I share with you guys here on this channel. I've got this 50, 30, 20 for a starting point for roasting, and that's pretty much what I did here. My dry phase was 49.8%. My middle phase, the browning phase, was 30.1%. And my development was 20.1%. So I went from a low air setting to a medium air setting right when I went through the dry phase, and then I changed that air setting again a little bit more when I got after first crack. My drum, I never changed my drum speed. I normally change the drum speed, and I forgot to do that because I was doing the recording. I changed the drum speed at just before first crack. Forgot to do that. I don't stir the beans a lot once they get into cooling tray, because the cooling tray just pulls air, cool air, room air through the coffee. And if I'm stirring it and I have these open gaps, then that cool air is going through the open gap, and I'd rather have it nice and laid out and have the air pull right through it. All right. Well, I hope this video has been helpful for you. You guys, if you like this video, hit the like button. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, do that. I've got a new roaster on the way here that I'm going to be reviewing and trying out. So be sure to subscribe. I'd really be interested in hearing your comments about this roast and or of this roaster. Leave those in the comments section. And if you haven't taken my poll on what type of roaster you're using, go to my community tab and take that poll. Also, if there's video content you'd like me to create and you haven't shared some of your thoughts on what you'd like to see, go to my community tab and leave a comment there as well. So thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great week roasting.